someone, what happens in his development as a person too. But it's never a straight path, as we all know, in the real world. So there is no, big shootout in the warehouse where he shoots the gun out of someone's hand. There's none of that. This is pretty gritty, pretty hardcore. But like I said, this particular book, The Vig, it's a small little back room little side deals that goes on around. I worked down there. It was like a cottage industry. I mean, a lot of the things I write in The Vig really did happen. I was offered a bribe out back of the exchange to steer business someone's way. They said they'll give me $5,000 in cash every month if I send. That was a while ago. It would have come in handy. There was.
Well, John, the experience that Frank had.
I worked for someone who was skimming money from his employees. And there's some lighthearted things too that were real. Like there was, I did watch someone, a whole trading crowd put up $2,000 to watch a guy eat a bug.
Really?
So that happens too.
I want the audience to know something about you. In the first chapter of your book, when the protagonist, Frank McGinley, is running from the collapsing towers, that was your personal experience. Yes, it was. And this was, when I originally wrote the first manuscript, I did not have that in, that's why that is the prologue. And I thought, and the reason why I didn't have it in was because, essentially I ran away. And there were so many heroes and so many brave people and so many sacrifices that were, obviously, I'm speaking to you, so I didn't sacrifice as much as many others. But I thought it would be disingenuous not to include that event if I'm writing about that era on Wall Street. It just, the enormity of it is the best word I can think of. Even if you weren't there, the enormity of it, all of the repercussions, and also, like I said, what it represents, the collapse of the old way of capitalism. It's just I guess it's sort of an unavoidable metaphor. I didn't want to be disrespectful, but I could not honestly write something about that era without including that in it. I just, it wouldn't be real. Something I'd like to talk about, your primary character, Frank McGinley, something that we've talked about, you and I, is that you're not even sure if you like the guy.
Oh, yeah. I had, brought this up, I had an editor say that very disparaging words about Frank. And it had me taken aback for a while. And then I thought about it, and then I had a good laugh. Then I thought about it, and, you know what? I don't know whether he's a good guy or bad guy. I really don't. But it doesn't matter. I think, I like him. Would I lend him my car? Probably not. It may not come back. But, I like him. I think he tries... he tries to be a good man, but it doesn't come naturally to him. That's really what it comes down to. He's not naturally a nice person, but damn, he's trying. He really is.
I really enjoy your characters. Most of the characters are so real to me. There's people. I've never been in the financial industry, and yet I can look at these characters, the things that they go through, and I just feel very strongly that I've met these people. I've known them in the past.
Yeah,
they're very real to me. I very much appreciate how you create your characters.
Well, that's what it's all about, right? You have to care about the characters.
Yeah, let's go back to the Vig itself, Brogan, some of the other characters in your book, The Vig. Carla. What a fantastic character, my gosh.
Oh, boy.
Let's talk a little bit about these folks.
The people definitely have an opinion about her. And men tend to like her. But then I refer them to Chapter 5, and I say, think about it seriously, whether you like Carla or not. So she's in a lot of ways she's very sympathetic, and I strive to do this. I mean, she's a cold-blooded killer, psychopath, sociopath. I mean, just brutally violent. Yet there's a vulnerability because her childhood was so bad, and as she develops in other books, you see how she was manipulated as a child, and and she wishes that she wasn't this way. I really think that she does. I think she wishes that she wasn't this way, but she is. And like I said, in other books, she tries to be more human, and it just doesn't work. She's very damaged, very damaged. But what the bad part is that she's chooses to take it out on others. And that's the point about the different choices people make in the different people. Like I said, Frank is, he's damaged goods also. He really is. But you know what? He's trying, man. He's trying. He falls back, but he gets up and he keeps trying to move forward. Someone like Carla, she gave up. She gave up the attempt to try to be good. She's the one. She'll just, she's the fist. She's the fist in this little triangle. She's the one who throws the punches.
Let's talk about Brogan. You talk about the fist. Elaborate on Brogan just a bit.
Yeah, well, he's kind of a tough nut also, but he is, like I said, he's aging. He's going past his prime, and the old way of doing things, he soon learns, doesn't really work. And he was, like a master spy, head of the Justice Department. He wrote parts of the manual on how to do surveillance, like a high level guy. Think of like, Dick Cheney's evil twin. but in his heart, he's a good man. He's a good man. He has charities and all that, but he doesn't mess around. And he likes to get things done, and usually things get done, in the hard way rather than the easy way. But he's going through a thing too. He discovers that he's been on the trail of a criminal, this Harrison Haywood, for years, and he realizes that someone like Frank, who's savvy and market savvy and understands technology, Frank figures it out in like an afternoon. And Brogan's like, I didn't even know any of this or how this worked, and he realizes how things have passed him by. And then he decides he's going to find a way, in his way, to finish this one last job.
Brogan, he seems to be more interested in an ending for justice as opposed to something that was legal. He's more into the justice as opposed to what is legal.
Yes. Well, there's the what's morally correct and what's legal, and there's a lot of that. That line is kind of hazy in every aspect, but especially I think on Wall Street lately. Well, lately meaning the last 15 years. But no, there's a part where Brogan is speaking to Frank, and Frank looks at Brogan and he says, he knew that this was not going to end in a courtroom. However this was going to end, it wasn't going to be in a courtroom. And that's Brogan right there,
John, we need to talk about the second book in this series, Grit. And why Grit? Why did you name it Grit?
First of all, I love the word. Second of all, I like the way it just looks on the cover, But it is about, and this is the sequel, so we're going to get the end of Carla and Frank in this book. And I did something I think is interesting where I played with the time a little bit. Like Carla you see Carla the day that the VIG ended. You see Frank 5 months later. So Carla goes on her little journey, her little path, which is, gets increasingly violent as it goes along, and they end up catching up. But this ends up being the confrontation, and the reason why I use grit is we're getting back to like the persistence or the desire to do the right thing. Like Frank's the kind of guy, like when he played basketball as a kid, he knew he had to get better, so he went out and shoveled the snow off the basketball court in the middle of winter so he could practice his foul shots. That's what he's all about. He's the guy who would run through the brick wall. He's the Irish mule. This is what he does. Work hard. He knows how to work. That's the thing he knows. And grit and determination is what gets him through. And the idea is, will grit or perseverance overcome savagery? And that was really the reason for grit.
Your character Carla, when looking at her background, her damaged childhood and so forth, but she is such a cold, complicated and yet accomplished killer. She just can't be stopped. It's one of the things that I find about her. I find myself having both sympathy for her, empathy for her, and yet at the same time, totally glad I have never met anybody like her, and I hope I never do.
I think there's a scene in Grit that I did this on purpose, and I don't know if people, if readers really get it, but I like to think, another thing about my writing is I like to think that, like I like to put in, like, these subtle metaphors, a subtle foreshadowing, like little things. I'll mention a line that someone used at the beginning of the book, and then at the end of the book, his adversary says the same thing to him. Things like that. But there's one chapter where Carla meets this pretty lounge singer, and she's enraptured by her. And she's like a girl. She's in love and giggly. She says she feels like the coolest guy in high school is talking to her. Like that's how she feels, like this giggly little girl. But then, this lounge singer ends up being heartless, and then Carla comes out and, in her savagery, deals her form of justice. But in that one little chapter, it's like you could see that this is her in a nutshell. I wrote, I think it was in the Vig, where she was, she was very shy and broken, and she stayed indoors and she never left. And she was living in Colorado at the time, and the first time one of the first times she ever interacted with a person, like for years, was there was an old man on a bench across the street, and she went and sat down next to him because she saw him for days, and he was saying that he's about to die, and he was just sitting there looking at the mountains. And she sat with him, and she remembered that day, and there's someone who did, and then later in the story, she comes back into town, and she sits on that same bench late at night, and she looks up the mountains, and she thinks to herself, my God, I'm thinking about this person who had such an influence on my life, and he I was like a second in his life, and it just crushes her how alone she is, and it's those type of things that make you feel for her. Yet then, she slashes a guy, sticks a knife in a guy's neck, and throws him behind a dumpster 2 chapters later. So that's Carla. She's complicated.
Yes, she is. Well, all the characters, all of your characters, to one degree or another, are complicated.
Yeah.
We have to take a break, John. We're going to take a short commercial break. Before we do, I do want to remind the audience again, be sure to tune in to the International Radio Book Tour with John Nuckel on June 16th. We'll have an in-depth preview of the Vig with a dramatic reading from the book. Now we'll take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back.